Hey, just before I get stuck into this afternoon's show, I just need to address that Brisbane and northern New South Wales are getting drenched, to put it lightly. But this show, let's have some fun, and I'm going to try and put a smile on people's faces who are suffering badly throughout these awful floods that are happening, fair income. So this is dedicated to the people that have lost their lives so far throughout the floods, and yeah, let's try and have some fun. Hey. Howdy everyone, it's Sam. I hope you're doing really well. If you're new around here, I hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. And if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you so much for the continuous support. This is the big one, eh? This is just about the one video that YouTubers put a lot of thought into and kind of dread or kind of relish or welcome the competition. This is my first time I've ever done a ladder predictions ever, so I'm a bit nervous. I've got me bloody shield and me sword up, metaphorically speaking. So, oh boy, Sam's putting his neck out right now, isn't he? This is the 2022 NRL Ladder Prediction Show, the Wobble and Jaw Show, episode number 8. And again, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Just before I put my neck out, I'm just going to deep dive into the chat. We got Rugby League Roundup. Hey man, thank you so much for the support. CJ Moxley, good sir. Jason Reader, hello Bosky, and CJ Moxley just reiterating that there are some gnarly floods happening, man. Guys, so let's not wait any further. So I want to explain something. So what I'm about to show you here is I've had a muck around with the ladder predictor on nrl.com. And what I've done is I've had a play, and by the end of 5 rounds, this is how I think the ladder will look. And I've hidden away how many points everybody's going to be sitting on. So that's how I see the ladder. Roosters, Penrith, Manly, and Parramatta are sitting inside the top 4. The bottom 4 features Wests, Souths, Newcastle, and Canterbury. So I will divulge my reasons as to why I have that ladder looking that way. Now, I also want to say this. The Wooden Spooners for this season are not going to have nearly as half a bad a season as Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs did last year. I think there could even be a slight chance. I think there is a chance that 14th to 16th could very well sit equal on competition points by the end of the season. We could have a duo set of Wooden Spooners just based off competition points, but obviously for and against sticks that wooden spoon down someone's throat, doesn't it? It's so hard. This was probably the hardest thing to choose out of everything because it's going to be such an unpredictable and competitive season. And I've just landed on the West Tigers. I'm going to stick the wooden spoon up the West Tigers clanger for season 2022. Adam Dewey is not going to be due back until at least round number 10. The West Tigers played well against the Eastern Suburbs the other day, but the Eastern Suburbs were decimated by injuries and the like as well. I look at the forward pack and I see Luciano Leilua, and that's just about it for me, mate. I mean, you had James Tarmo, one of the newly anointed captains, take out poor old Sam Walker's legs the other week. I think Hastings and Brooks, they worked okay the other week, But as soon as Brooks and Little came off, in my opinion, and Jock Madden and the gentleman who I can't pronounce or enunciate the last name of, number 21, they looked a bit better. But Madge Maguire is going to go for Hastings and Little and Brooks for the first 10 rounds. And I think whilst it won't be a completely slow start, I don't think the West Tigers are going to get enough points on the board to avoid bottom four, or in my opinion, the wooden spoon. They will be competitive in games, obviously. They'll win more games than what Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs did last season, and they might be joined by somebody else on equal last place or on equal last competition points as well. But for me, I just don't trust the West Tigers to get out of the bottom four, let alone avoid the wooden spoon for season 2022. So apologies to West Tigers fans, but that's just my opinion. If you disagree, leave it down in the comments. Do whatever you need to do to get it off your chest, but that's just my opinion. And number 15, I've chosen to go for the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. And the reason why I have the lowly Bulldogs potentially garnering their second wooden spoon in successive seasons is I don't like their spine. I think poor Matt Burton, after seeing what he done at Penrith as a 5'8", when Nathan Cleary or Jerome Luai wasn't around him in the early parts of his career, I think Matt Burton's going to have a lot of bricks on top of his shoulders, and I think he's going to have a good season, but I just don't think he's going to play the way that we know he could play. And that's not going to come until Reid Marnie comes to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs next season. For example, Jake Averillo and Kyle Flanagan, I don't think they're going to provide the help that he needs in the halves. Matt Duffy, for me, comes way too in and out of games, and they simply don't have a top hooker, a top dummy half as well. And that comes in the shape of Jeremy Marshall-King. The signings of Tavita Pangai Jr. and Paul Vaughan, I think the forward pack will be good. I think they're going to be really hard to stop with the post-contact meters department. But also, the same could be said about a couple of clubs that I've placed above Canterbury, but I think Canterbury are coming from that far down the well. I do not see them making the top 8, and I don't really see them having all that of a successful season, but they sure as hell will have a better season than what they have last year as well. So just before I go on, I just want to deep dive into the chat again. So we've got some oops, we got some all bloody hell. So yes, we got National Sports Loaded and Proinso Fits in the chat as well. So hello, gentlemen. Thank you very much for saying good day. And this is now going to be my number 14th position, and that's the Newcastle Knights. Unfortunately, the Newcastle Knights are going to drop way out of the top 8. And Nick from Australia and I spoke about this or just touched on it a couple of weeks ago. Newcastle Knights don't look like they've evolved their attack, and their attack last year was not all that good in the first place. Defensively, I don't think they're steely enough yet. And whilst I really want Jake Clifford from a bias point of view to do really well, at Adam Clune, I like Adam Clune as well. I just think they are the most injury-affected team coming into 2022, especially with the loss of their captain in hooker Brayley. I think they're going to have a slow start, and I think they're not going to have the confidence. And with just the recent rumours, not reports, just rumours that Kalen Ponga isn't going to sign or re-sign with the Newcastle Knights, I think that's going to play a part mentally. I think that's going to play a factor come State of Origin time midway through the season, when more of Kalen Ponga's cards will be revealed. But at this point in time, the bookies have got Kalen Ponga leaving Newcastle, and if that's the case, I don't know how well Kalen Ponga can go. And let alone that, unfortunately, as much as I do like him, I don't trust Kalen Ponga's body to maintain an injury-free like season as well. Their forward pack is good, but there's no real X factor to him. So you've got Saifidi, you've got Clemmer, Fitzgibbon, Mitch Barnett is great. He can be great on his day. But for me, the forward pack just don't have, I don't know, I feel like their forward pack just don't have that extra level to sort of put teams on notice and maybe watch out for a flick pass or watch out for something or other. So I think Newcastle are going to fall down the ladder dramatically. And let alone that, I'll put this out there as well. I say this with as much respect as I possibly can. I don't like the coach, Adam O'Brien. I think he's drilling way too hard into the Newcastle Knights. I think the teachings from Craig Bellamy that he learned from Melbourne, he's come up and he's sort of turned it up to 12 a little bit too much. And I think they're going to be gassed about halfway through, and I think they're going to be a bit of a down club come the midway point of the season. But I think they will have much more successful seasons than Canterbury and the West Tigers. So my next option, number 13, it's another team that's dropping out of the top 8 for me. It's the Gold Coast Titans, and it's not because I dislike them or what have you. I think the Gold Coast Titans, they only just scraped into the top 8. They had a lot of things go their way as well. But now that Jamal Fogarty, who's not the end-all or be-all, don't get it wrong, Jamal Fogarty, that mature head, albeit very, very short career so far, I think that mature head has left the Gold Coast Titans for greener pastures, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I think Toby Sexton and AJ Brimson, look, they could be electric throughout a few games this season. Don't get it wrong. I think for the most part, Gold Coast Titans were possibly the most exciting attacking team throughout 2021. They were really exciting to watch, but I don't trust Tino. I don't trust David Fafita. Doesn't matter how much money they're on or who's captain or what have you. They are way too inconsistent. I hope they are consistent. And I also like the look of Beau Fermor as well. I have a massive rap on Mr. Beau Fermor. But I think if there's going to be a year where they backtrack and then catapult or springboard back into finals contention, it's going to be this year where they backtrack, and possibly next year they're going to explode, especially with Toby Sexton and Brimson, AJ Brimson, trying to garner more of a cohesion, more of an understanding of each another's games throughout the next 18 months or so. So it is an experience as to why I am not putting them into my top 8. They're a young side as well. I mean, you've got Kevin Proctor and Jared Wallace, and Jared Wallace might be off to the Dolphins as well, by reports or rumours as well. But I think the Gold Coast Titans, they only scraped into the top 8. And at times their defence was dreadful. And I don't know how good their defence is going to be. And let alone that, and the same can be said for the next team as well. They just had their trial cancelled as well. So they're going to be a little bit underdone, and therefore I think they might have a bit of a slow start to the season as well. So this is the next team that I've got in at number 12 on the ladder. I've got the New Zealand Warriors, and as I alluded to just then, the New Zealand Warriors are going to have a very slow start to the season, in my opinion. I think Sean Johnson, he wouldn't have played a game. He's going to have to try and hit the ground running from wherever they might play, because at the moment, Sunshine Coast looks like it might be flooded as well, so they might have to change a venue as well. I think the news of the New Zealand Warriors not playing at Mount Smart Stadium might have dampened the spirits of the club, and the dark cloud that is hanging above them in the form of Reece Walsh, will he or won't he stay with the New Zealand Warriors? And it looks like he won't stay with the New Zealand Warriors. It's just a bit too much, I think, for them to handle. Their second row pairings, Alisa Katoa and Ewan Aitken, I like Katoa, but he's still very young. And Ewan Aitken, he's just a no-nonsense forward, but there's no... besides his speed, I don't think there's more to it than that for Ewan Aitken. He'll just get the ball and he'll run a good line and head down, ass up sort of thing. As for the forward pack, look, Matt Lodge and Aidan Fanua-Blake is a massive forward pairing, aren't they? And coming off the bench, just struggling to think about who else is coming off the bench. For example, Bunty Afoa as well. They're a big forward pack, and Matt Lodge did some really good damage against the Melbourne Storm the week before. I just don't trust the back line for the New Zealand Warriors. I don't know if it's that they lack speed. I don't know if it's defense or if it's just they're a young backline themselves. But from 1 to 7, besides Sean Johnson, I just don't. I don't know. I wouldn't place my money on that backline to do all too much. But I mean, they beat the Melbourne Storm last week, and defensively they were committed, but they really came back into the game when Cameron Munster and Brandon Smith came off, sort of thing. And before that, they were kind of 50-50 for me anyway. So I've got the New Zealand Warriors, unfortunately, missing the top 8. And I think the overriding reason, and I'm sorry to the Warriors fans that think this is just a bit of a cop-out reason, but it is that the news that they may not actually play again in New Zealand until next season. I think that might play a factor on them mentally as well. So that's who I've chosen to miss out on number 12. That's who I've chosen to miss out on the top 8 at number 12. I've got the New Zealand Warriors, and just before I go on, I need to deep dive into the chat and just have a quick squiz, make sure no one is saying anything nasty or anything of the like. And it looks all good, guys. So at the next one, number 11, I'm going to have the Brisbane Broncos, and this is going to be so controversial. I said that they're one of the more overhyped sides coming into 2022, and I'll say something very unpopular. And I'm going to say something very unpopular. Maybe it's because I am a Cowboys supporter and I don't watch Brisbane. I don't see, or I haven't seen exactly what everybody sees in Katoni Staggs. I said it. Katoni Staggs, for me, he can make a couple of blockbusting runs. He scored a great try against St. George Illawarra, but he's been suspended or he's been injured. And I'm not going to sift through the sands of time to go see how he went in his first season or two. I don't see what everybody sees in Katoni Staggs, and there's a huge spotlight on him for me personally and from everybody else in 2022. Adam Reynolds, whilst he's the captain and he's an elite status halfback, he hasn't played a trial game. I think the nerves could get the better of him. He's a 50-50 chance of actually having a decent game. And I thought there were some ordinary signs, albeit it's just a trial, but there were some ordinary signs on how the Brisbane Broncos played the other week against North Queensland. They just, I don't know, they hit the ground running, and then once North Queensland sort of actually switched on and Brisbane Broncos were met with some resistance, they sort of looked like they folded back in on themselves. They went back into their shells a little bit, besides the likes of a Payne Haas or what have you. They're still a very inexperienced side, Brisbane Broncos, for me, or not experienced. They're still very young. And it felt like towards the back end of last season, they were a very committed unit. They were hard to beat. And now that Adam Reynolds and Kurt Capewell and this really gnarly training regime that's gone down for the Brisbane Broncos this offseason, it just feels like that maybe the game's changed again on this young side. And they weren't impressive against Gold Coast. They weren't very good against North Queensland. And maybe it's just the young side. They're trying to chase their tails a bit and try and maintain a really good status or a good level of intensity. But again, that's just based off trial form. I think they are going to have a couple of more wins to start off the season in the first 5 rounds than some. I think they have an okay draw, to say the least. I think they have a chance of winning against South Sydney in round 1. And where that's going to take place, who knows? Because with Suncorp, with the pictures that came out today, it looks like it may not be at Suncorp. So maybe Brisbane might be a little bit down the ladder than what I placed originally. And I'll just bring that up here. So just in case if you're tuning in, I hope you're doing well. This is the 2022 Nrl Ladder Prediction Show. And at the start of the show, I just said to everybody and showed everybody that this is how I think the ladder is going to look after 5 rounds. And we're talking about the Brisbane Broncos, who I've got here in 11th. And after 5 rounds, I've got Brisbane Broncos in at 10th position. So I think Brisbane are going to be full of adrenaline because of Adam Reynolds and having that halfback, but also his partner, who's Adam Reynolds' partner going to be? It's going to take at least 10 rounds, I reckon, maybe 8, at least 8 to 10 rounds to actually concrete a partner for Adam Reynolds in the halves. And until they're really settled, I think once the adrenaline wears off, that the fact that they've got Adam Reynolds in their squad, I think the cracks are going to start showing, maybe especially through Origin period, depending on how many players Brisbane have got playing in State of Origin. But yeah, I think Brisbane are going to come close. They may even find themselves inside the top 8 midway through the season or 3/4 of the way through the season. But I just think that youth are going to get taught a couple of other lessons that they weren't anticipating. And I think they're just going to miss the top 8 in 2022. Number 10. Number 10, I've got the St. George Illawarra Dragons, and there are going to be a couple of people that might be upset with this, but hear me out. So I think St. George Illawarra Dragons finished the year in 2021 on about 20-odd points, about 20 points, and I think they're going to be a couple of wins better than that. I think you only needed about 22 points or something lower than in recent history to make the top 8, and that's what Gold Coast Titans did last year. And we know what happened with the Dragons back in January in 2021. But the Dragons, they're going to be a 4-win better team in 2022. But I think that the fear that I've got, and the reason why I'm just stopping short of putting them in the top 8, and it's a very near thing. I've got the Dragons missing the top 8 because of their forward pack. They're big, but there are a couple of new faces around the club. Some have come from Queensland, living in Wollongong or Sydney or what have you. And I don't want to say they're old, but they're a very wise forward pack. They're a very mature forward pack, St. George Illawarra Dragons. And whilst Tyrell Sloan, I think, is going to have a fabulous 2022, I don't think it's going to be enough for them to get into the top 8 as well. If you saw the trial, if you watched the trial, the Charity Shield trial, they had all the chances in the world because the Rabbitohs dropped that much ball and the Dragons didn't do anything with it in the second half. They had that lead and they just couldn't put the final nail in the coffin. And obviously it's just trial and they're still working on things. I think Amon and Hunt are going to be really good. I just have a question on their forward pack. And I think Sully and who's the other gentleman? Ravalawa. I think they're 2 inconsistent players as well that I don't want to trust just yet. But if they catch fire, they're going to come close. Dragons are going to be in the top 8 at some stage or another this season. And I think Origin time is going to affect them as well, just quietly. And all these predictions I've got happening here is I'm trying to factor in the Origin period, and I'm trying to factor in who's suspended and injured throughout the first 5 rounds of the competition as well. And I think St. George are going to have a mixed bag to start off the year, just quietly. And I think they're dancing on the side of a corner as far as their top 8 aspirations go. And speaking of dancing on the side of the coin, finishing in number 9. Oh boy, I've got the South Sydney Rabbitohs just missing the top 8 in 2022. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, I think it was overlooked by a lot of people, actually, or maybe it was just that they put too much confidence in South Sydney Rabbitohs. But I think they are in for a very slow start in 2022. They have the draw from hell, especially considering you've got experience like Adam Reynolds and Wayne Bennett that's left. And yeah, they can catch fire because of adrenaline and what have you, but I don't see it happening. I think they've got a really nasty draw, and I think they're only going to miss the top 8 by 1 win or by 4 and against, because I think in the back half of the season, I think they're going to come home with a wet sail and scare a lot of teams. Latrell Mitchell as well. Latrell Mitchell, bro, you've got the biggest season of your life ahead of you, mate. And there's a lot of people that want to say either don't keep a lid on it or keep a lid on it, mate. And I'm in the keep a lid on it. I think I don't dislike him at all. I really don't. But you cost yourself a premiership ring, because in my opinion, if Latrell Mitchell plays in that grand final, they win it, in my opinion. So Latrell Mitchell, you've got to try and keep a lid on it, mate, and touch wood. I'm touching wood that your body stays injury free as well. And the same for every other team in the NRL this season as well. Cody Walker, look, he was fabulous last year. He really was. It's a brand new ball game for him. And he also just needs to just turn it down a little bit as far as his aggression goes. In the forward pack, I look at South Sydney's forward pack and I see Kolua Matangi and I see Cameron Murray. Weapons, absolute weapons. As far as the rest of the forward pack, besides Tom Burgess, I'm not feeling it from them. I think, look, here's the thing that I want to say, the bottom line about South Sydney as well. Throughout most of last year, I said I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm not on the bandwagon of South Sydney. I can't really grasp on what they're going to do or how they're going to go. And they made the bloody grand final. And I'm sitting here now saying if Latrell Mitchell plays, they win the premiership. But South Sydney were just so hard to get a grasp on, or at least for me personally, last season. And now that they've got a little bit more youth playing, and as much as I like Blake Taft, the look of him anyway, and as much as I want Lachlan Ilias to succeed, there are just a bit too many question marks on individual players for me for South Sydney. And I think about this. North Queensland grand final losers in 2017, and then they fell off the face of the cliff. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen to South Sydney for the next 4 or 5, 6 odd years, but sometimes a beaten grand finalist does get punched in the mouth so hard that they do fall out of the top 8. And I think South Sydney's start to 2022, I hope it doesn't happen, but I think South Sydney's start is going to be what does not get them into the top 8. I think they're going to drop too many points in the early stages of 2022 to make up ground. So let's get into the top 8 now, guys. And just before I go on, I can see that I've got 50 comments that I haven't read, and that that I just need to just really make sure that no one's saying any negativity, bro. Yeah, all right. I can see a couple of South Sydney supporters that aren't impressed at the moment. But again, man, that's just how I feel. And look, for your sake, I hope it doesn't. But that's just how I feel, bro. So let's go into the top 8 now, guys. And just to say, Proenzo Vids, National Sports Loaded, Paddy G is in the house, man. Hey, bro. CJ Moxley, it's Bosky. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in again. So we're halfway through the video now, guys. And let's get into who I think is going to finish in number 8. And I've got the Cronulla Sharks finishing just inside the top 8. And I'm not one of them people that have got them in the top 4. I thought I could have been a couple of months ago. But just recently, I've got cold feet about the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Cronulla, they've got so many new players in. And they're going to work on combinations, and I think it's going to take a while to gel for everybody. Defensively, I like that Craig Fitzgibbon has come out and publicly said they're going to be trying to get back to the defensive ways of Cronulla Sutherland, more than the attacking style of play that John Morris brought into the club a year or two ago. But I think it's going to take them a little bit. For example, I think Cronulla are going to have that much pressure on them that they're going to fold in some certain games, like losing a home game when they're playing at PointsBet Stadium. Like, they returned to PointsBet Stadium this season, so it could garner them more wins. But Cronulla Sutherland, it's going to take them a while for them to gel. But I think that the pressure is going to really stick some adrenaline up them and get them into the top 8 just. So I've got the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks in at number 8. In at number 7, I've got the Canberra Raiders. Canberra Raiders, I am a believer, or I want to believe very much so, in Whiten and Fogarty being a really good halves combination. Josh Hodgson and Tom Starling as your dummy halves, and with Xavier Savage as well, showing great signs. I think Canberra Raiders can find themselves in the top 8. It's just last season it could have been anything for him last year, but the dark cloud that was George Williams, let's say for what it is, George Williams, just really put a sour note onto the Canberra Raiders last year and their top 8 aspirations. And they showed some real class when they travelled to Leichhardt Oval and they took on the Sydney Roosters. And you had Matt Frawley and Sam Williams drop like flies, and then you had Chance Nickel-Klugstar, and then you had another player come in. I think it was Brad Schneider. And they did some really good things, and they stayed classy, and they played a really good game. And then in the next game, they were a bit slow off the pace. They just couldn't hold on to the ball when they took on Manly last Friday night. But then they turned the clock on. They turned it on, and they got back into the game, and they eventually won it. And I just think they need to play a little bit more direct. I think they played a little bit too sideways last year and in the trial games as well, and they were a bit too cute. So if they can just play a little bit more direct, hard and fast, I think Canberra Raiders could go very well. Now, a lot of people are asking, mate, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing? We're North Queensland Cowboys. Surely you don't have them as minor premiers, do you? No, I don't. But you got to back your team a little bit, don't you? Coming in at number 6, I'm going to go for the North Queensland Cowboys. North Queensland, mate, I think they've got wonderful depth. I think that I do believe in the talent that they've got, the young talent, whether it be the forwards or the backs. And finally, we've got Chad Townsend, and a lot of people said it was perplexing as to the reason why North Queensland went for him. But boy, howdy, Chad Townsend kicked for 400 metres the other week. He was putting in classy kicks on fourth tackle, and just I really noticed his direction and his communication with Tom Dearden and Scott Drinkwater and Hammer. I thought Chad Townsend was good. I think he's going to be great, and it looks like Tom Dearden has found that other level to him. And Scott Drinkwater, he's going to have some competition to get in or maintain his spot. The defense has been fantastic, even though they're just trials. I'm going to back the boys to make the top 8. I think we've got the depth. I think we've got the talent. And let alone that, I think we're due an injury-free season, because the past 3 or 4 years, we've probably finished top 2 in each of those seasons. Maybe except for 2018, but they have been injury riddled, and I think we're due some luck finally. And if we maintain a consistent 1 to 17 throughout the year, I think we're going to cause all sorts of problems for a number of teams, except for some. But that's I reckon North Queensland, I'm going to back the boys, and I'm going to stick them in at 6th position. And now in number 5, I'm going to go the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. And I'll say this, if the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles, if they win their first 3 or 4 games in a row, I will probably bump that up personally. I'd probably put them well inside the top 4, maybe even 2nd position. But for me, there were some really bad signs from Manly Warringah that were present at the very start of the year. It was sort of Manly's 2021 season was bookended by some really ordinary defence. And if you just excuse me, I've just been given the go-ahead to put the charger in. So if you excuse me, lads, just for a moment. That's better. Hopefully, anyway. Testing, 1, 2. Yeah, Manly Warringah, their season was bookended by some poor performances for about 3 weeks in a row there. And I don't think... I think there's going to be the origin period that's really going to bugger them. I think maybe... see, now it feels like I'm starting to find excuses as to why they're not going to win as many games, but I just think it's like for 10 minutes at a time throughout matches for Manly throughout 2021, for 10 to 15 minutes, they just zone out. They sort of just, it's like someone turns off the light inside a darkly lit room and they just go missing. Just a bit too much for me. And look, it's tough. It's tough to not put them in the top 4, considering how good they were towards the back end of the year. But I just, I've got Manly finishing in 5th position, but by no means does that mean that they're not a premiership contender, because they are. Now, speaking of premiership contenders, let's get into the top 4. And before I do, I just need to address some comments here in the chat. So we've got Mr. Paddy G, National Sports Loaded. Just checking that there's no nastiness or anything else like that. Cool. All right, no worries. So we've got the top 4 now, and let's get into it. In at number 4, I've got the Melbourne Storm. I think the Melbourne Storm are not going to be the minor premiers. I think they have been the worst performed team throughout the off season, throughout 2021-22. They've got a slow start, I reckon, in the form of Cameron Munster and Brandon Smith not playing in round 1, so they potentially could drop their first points in round 1 since 2002 or something like that. And I just think I don't want to eulogize Melbourne Storm too much, and believe me, they're a premiership threat, but I just think there's going to be a few more teams this season, more so than ever, that aren't going to be afraid of that Melbourne Storm aura that has been ever present, evermore, for a really long time now. Melbourne Storm, and also they've got Craig Bellamy. It's going to be potential. I don't mean to put him in the coffin too early, but it could be Craig Bellamy's last season. I think it will be. They're going to play for their coach. Craig Bellamy deserves to at least have his side finish in the top 4 and have a very successful season. And it was very close between Manly and Melbourne as far as whether I put Melbourne in 5th or 4th. But doesn't Cameron Munster look bloody fit? Fair dinkum. So I've got Melbourne Storm in at number 4, and let's get into who I think is going to be number 3. And number 3, I've got the Parramatta Eels. A lot of people are going to question that. A lot of people are going to be insane about that. But I have got Parramatta Eels in there because at the start of last year, I said, if it's not this year, when's it going to be? And fortunately, they've been able to create a brand new window for themselves, because I do think that they are a threat to the premiership in 2022. And one of the reasons, or maybe the main reason why I say that, is that Parramatta Eels, I think they would have learnt so much in that loss to Penrith. That was the game of the year last year in that semi-final when they played one another up there at Mackay. And I think Parramatta Eels, I mean, if Reid Marnie plays, maybe they win, who knows? But I think they're going to take so much out of that. I think they're going to be so hungry. I think they're going to be so determined to do something this year, because I think that they know that their premiership window probably closes by the end of this season. Papali'i, for example, is gone. Marata Niukore is gone by the end of the year. I think Parramatta Eels can sense that their premiership window is closing. I think Parramatta Eels will evolve. They'll learn from their loss, their high quality game of the year loss to the eventual premiers, Penrith Panthers. And I think they're going to surprise a few people, actually. They still got a great squad. They were in the top 4 for most of last season as well. And just for a couple of weeks there back to back where they dropped off and finished in 6th position, I think they were a top 4 side last year that got a little bit buggered and a little bit unlucky towards the back end of the year, that found themselves in 6th position. And I think they can rectify that. I think they have to as well. And I can see at least a preliminary final finish for them in 2022. So Parramatta Eels, I've got in 3rd position. And in 2nd position, I've got the Sydney Roosters. Sydney Roosters are going to be such a hard team to beat this season. Tedesco, Keary, Sam Walker's got a year under his belt. Joseph Zawali, when he comes back eventually, he's on $1 million. He's going to have to play if he's on that sort of coin. They're going to be a really scary team to take on. And by the end of the year, the new Sydney Football Stadium is going to be open for him. And Sydney Roosters defensively as well, they're going to be stout. It's just the reason why I don't have them as the minor premiers is that they're their discipline off the ball, their 6 against, their penalties, bro. They just need to keep their bloody hands off it, or they just need to just back off, man, because that's what's going to kill them a couple of times this season. They're not going to be completely unbeatable, but if I go back into who I think are going to be on top of the ladder by the end of 5 rounds, I do have Sydney Roosters up there just above Penrith. The Roosters are going to be really switched on, but I think whilst Trent Robinson likes to have his team play it sort of the long game, I think they're going to be caught out a couple of times as well. So without further ado, my minor premiers for 2022, the Penrith Panthers. And a lot of people might question that because they're missing a lot of players, and there are rumours not rumours, that they are going to lose more players by the end of the year. So maybe that might muck around with them mentally. But they've been class. They've been maybe not in their grand final celebrations, but they've been a really tough, classy team to try and beat in 2020 and 2021. And don't discount the premiers. You can't discount the premiers at all. So therefore, the top 8 and our final series for 2022, in my opinion, looks like this. I think on a Friday night, week 1, we've got Penrith versus Melbourne. On the Saturday afternoon, potentially from the new Sydney Football Stadium, Eastern Suburbs and Parramatta. And then probably on the Saturday night, North Queensland versus Canberra. And then on the Sunday afternoon, we've got Manly versus Cronulla. I think that's how it's all going to go. There's not going to be a whole lot in it because, let me say this as well, this is going to be the most unpredictable. It's going to be the closest, best season of NRL I think we're ever going to see. I think it's going to be an amazing season of rugby league in 2022, and it's going to be so hard to pick winners, man. It's going to be so hard to pick winners. So if you disagree, if you agree, please leave your comments in the comment section. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for the support. And please do not forget, I am joined by Miss Kate Cornish, author of the North Queensland Cowboys website, this Wednesday for a full-on fair dinkum 2022 season preview of the North Queensland Cowboys. I am so honoured and I am so excited. I'm thanking me lucky stars that I've got her as a guest on Wednesday night, this Wednesday afternoon, actually, from 5:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time as well. So please join me for that. That's the next time I'll be live. Once again, thank you for the continuing support. My best wishes go out to the people of Southeast Queensland and Northern Eastern New South Wales as well. It's just dreadful what's going on up there. It's just crazy. Anyway, guys, I hope your team goes well this year anyway, guys, because everyone's a chance of making the top 8 this year, mate. So anyway, thank you very much. Take care. Adios.